Hey, this is Thomas Mashad. Welcome back to Brain Doodles. And in this lesson of Memory Boost, this is part two of listening. If you haven't listened to part one or watched part one, it'd be a good thing to do before you continue on with this one. However, what we're going to start here is talking about the tips of listening. I'm going to cover about 12 of them. So let's get started. The first tip we're just going to briefly talk about here is practicing with our eyes closed. If we have our eyes open, it really it's a sense that just really overwhelms our hearing because we just want to keep looking around and we take all of that in, and so we don't end up actually listening to the speaker. So sometimes if you can just end up closing those eyes, that helps to improve our ability to listen to what somebody else is saying. Okay, so a lot of times, if you've ever noticed that, if you're listening to music and you'll end up listening to it with your eyes closed, you can really focus in on what the words are, because maybe if you have your eyes open, you just hear the melody, not so much the words. But if you close your eyes, it really helps to improve your ability to listen. For tip number two, we want to listen for the bones. And what this means is that sometimes there's a lot of fat that ends up being around, the meat of or the bone of the topic. All right, so we want to kind of cut away from that just so we can hear what is being said, what the most important things are that are being said. Okay, so listen to this particular statement. Let's say if I'm, that we're in class and I read this to you. Okay. Okay, we have a big month coming up in October, and you're not necessarily going to like all the stuff that we have to cover. But we've got to cover everything before Thanksgiving holiday. So we're going to cover the topics of the Civil War and the Reconstruction period during the next 4 weeks. You're going to be required to read a chapter every week and develop a report on each chapter. Make sure you view each of the videos associated with the chapters as well, as there will be drum roll please, a quiz. Yes, a quiz over the video. I know that you don't like that, but it will occur every Friday. Now, there's a lot of fat in what I just said, okay? Now, if we just focus in on what the bones were of it, we just have, go back to my black. We just have these primary points. Is that we have something that's going to be due in October, okay, or that we have a big month coming in October. So big month of October. The topics that we're going to cover are the Civil War, and also we'll cover the topic of Reconstruction period. I'm just going to abbreviate that, the Reconstruction period. And we need to read, so maybe look. We need to read these documents, one chapter a week, one chapter per week. We could even draw maybe a calendar out of something. So, drawing something out there, something that's due one each week. We have videos. So, there could be like a little play button, for a video online. And that is going to lead to a quiz. And the quizzes are going to be on Friday. So we put those connectors together using the arrows for each one of those. We have online videos that are going to be quiz, and they're going to be on Friday. So there's other things that you can end up listening for, but this is really just the bones of everything that, big month of October, covering the Civil War, the Reconstruction period, that we're going to read one chapter a week, and that we have an online videos that we're going to be quizzed about on Friday. So that's listening for the bones, and that's tip number two. Now for tip number three, it's going to be very similar to number two in listening for the bones. That if you have, and this could be something that you're reading or listening to, that somebody's talking, what you want to do out of all of this, that you have somebody that you're quoting, you want to use like little short sentences or phrases. Okay, just pick out the most relevant points, whether you're mind mapping something out or listening. So, if you're listening for just these little short key phrases, okay, so we can put a little key up here to saying that we don't want to try to listen for everything. We just want to listen for little key elements. It kind of looks a little bit like a saw, doesn't it? So maybe I use an old-fashioned key instead. Boom. There we go. Looks a little bit more like a skeleton key. So we want to listen for little key sentences or phrases that we can point out and listen to, and then that way we don't listen to all the extraneous stuff that we end up putting in. All right, so that's tip number 3. Use short sentences or phrases. In tip number 4, we want to suspend our ego. When I'm going to draw my little figure here that they're listening. We have our little brain here. We have our ears that's taking all of our information in from the speaker. All right. So somebody's over here talking, and we want to listen. But the one thing that we do not want to do is that we do not want our brain to start forming an opinion of what they're saying. Okay, so we use our red here. We'll cross that out. We don't want to form an opinion. We don't want to think about necessarily developing a rebuttal of what they're saying. We just want to be able to listen and put in all of our, key elements, key little frames, images, whatever it is. And then after we get done, then we can go back and then formulate an opinion about what was being said. And then that way we actually have more information rather than just a little bit of information that if we were just to do maybe some linear notes and then, think about something and then some more linear notes and then, we keep having these little pauses of our brain as we're thinking. Okay, so get the whole picture down and then develop an opinion. So suspend your ego, leave your ego at the door, just listen to what the person has to say and give them the respect that they deserve. So suspend your ego is tip number 4. For tip number 5, you want to pay attention to the narration, the build of the narration. You have a class that may last about 60 minutes. Okay, so in that block of time, you want to listen to something and move on to the next. And you could have a few different topics within this narration. Okay, so you want to pay attention to seeing how this is being built within that length of time. And then this way you can, double check where you are at each point in the narration. How much space do you end up having in your notes, in your paper that you're taking the visual notes. That if you started up here and then you go down and around and over and through, and if you're only about halfway through, you might need to get ready for another sheet of paper. Okay, so don't be caught in a lurch with just the one sheet of paper. Make sure you have more than one. Knowing where you are in the period of class, that if you're about this far and you still have this far to go, this may need yet another sheet of paper. Okay, so normally what ends up happening is that you're told what you're going to be told. Through here, you're being told what you've been told you're going to be, what you're going to hear. And down here at the end is that you tell them what you just told them. So that's how it usually kind of works out within some narration. And sometimes you can also, get this idea that, they kind of warm up and then they get to the meat of the matter and then it kind of goes back down. So in this area, it's going to be very important to pay attention. Here, you're just kind of getting warmed up. And here is the conclusion of the whole matter. Okay, so pay attention to the narration build of the speaker. For tip number 6, encaching the content. What you just what you're doing here, say that you have your notes, your visual notes, you end up saying, okay, we have an important month coming up in October. There's going to be quizzes, there's going to be, readings. So you might end up putting in, oh, we got a quiz. So I'm going to leave that there. That we have, chapters that we're going to read. And then later on, I can come back in and revisit this quiz to saying, these are videos that, I was able to kind of write down, oh, we got quizzes, they're videos, but if I can at least write this down to saying, okay, we go from here and up to here, or vice versa, that it's just caching, jotting down little things of what you've heard the speaker say that you can come back and revisit. All right. Now, if you happen to miss something, don't worry about it. But what you're just, doing is keeping something in your brain that you can end up putting down on paper, or sometimes you end up putting it in paper so that your brain can come back and visited whatever it was that you just kind of quickly jotted down on the paper. Okay, so keep things short, simple, caching the content, and then coming back and revisiting it.